excited to be doing this program again. As Alessa mentioned, though I'm Development and Communications at Victoria Mansion, I also do a lot within education. And some of that is object-based learning. And so I really enjoy teaching and learning with objects. As Alessa mentioned, my background is in theater, so I like taking kind of a theatrical approach to the way that people are able to engage with museum collections and historic sites. And so what we're going to do today is really going to be more of a workshop. I'll get us started with talking about what I mean by objects or material culture, as we discuss in the museum field, and basically using just some of these open-ended questions to get visitors engaged with objects at your site or art at historic sites as well. I think I'm going to be half and half with the microphone and trying to just project, so if at any point you can't hear me, just kind of wave a hand. So a phrase that I like to bring in from the theater is just yes and. And so this is just a way to validate ways that people are engaging with something at your site. So rather than someone looking at something and thinking, oh, that looks like a doorbell, rather than say, no, that's actually not a doorbell, that's a light switch. You can say, oh, that does look like a doorbell. What about that looks like a doorbell to you? What is the look of it? What reminds you of that? What else could we possibly use this for, especially if it's indoors? So it's just a way to kind of work off of what people are bringing to their tour experience. We're promoting visitor interaction with through select objects and works of art. Maybe you have something specific on display. If you're a cemetery, maybe there are particular stones that you're really excited about and want to talk about. And then again, using your background knowledge to let your visitors make connections with something at your site. When we talk about objects in this context, we're talking about objects as physical, created materials that include furnishings, art, tools, and everyday handheld items. Again, objects can extend to things like headstones or just pieces of another object. Whether on display or available for guests to interact with, museum objects can help tell stories and interpret historic spaces. And everyone can make associations with objects. Visitors might bring a different background to an object than you have. I've selected an object for this particular slide from the collections at Maine Historical Society. I really love this object because there are so many different connections that people might be able to make with it and glean history from it. It is a beadwork pouch, which was created by Wabanaki artisans, used to hold medicinal herbs. So you might have someone on your tour, if you have this object on display, who knows about beadwork, and they are drawn to the beadwork. Maybe you have someone who is a gardener, and they are drawn to the fiddlehead motif on the object. Maybe you have someone who is a doctor, and they're really interested in learning more about the medicinal qualities of this object. So there are so many different stories that you can start to tell based on just one particular object in your collection. And so again, in theater, we use this idea of yes and. So yes, that did have a fiddlehead on it. What do you know about fiddleheads? What do you think that they might have been representing by using that on this object? This particular object that I've grabbed, there are so many different connections that you might be able to make with it. There are different components to the object. It might look like a scale to someone. It might look like a tool to someone. Maybe they focus on one particular aspect of the object. And just any particular observation that a person can make, rather than starting off with, what do you think this is? A great way to start out is just, what do you notice about this? What do you notice about this object? What is a component of this object that you're drawn to? People make associations with objects in theater frequently. This is a process called making associations with objects. So when you're acting in a performance, you are sort of imbuing an object with meaning, whether it is a piece of set dressing or a prop that you're using. And this is something that you can absolutely use in historic sites as well. I like to think of objects that we use today like mounts for your phone in your car, that in 50 years, maybe people will have absolutely no idea what that is for, but they will still have an association with needing to prop something up to look at it. So if we see something like a book cradle that we don't necessarily recognize, we might be able to see like, oh yeah, okay, I'm using this to prop up the book to read it. I'm propping this up to be able to have a closer look at it. And so just finding those things, again, like with the medicine pouch, maybe someone is a bead worker and they have a specific association with the object that you personally don't have that specific background. Again, asking people what they notice about an object's characteristics. And in a group, it's not about who guesses right about the objects. We have some great objects at Victoria Mansion that are usually on display in the dining room that look like vases, and they are used to hold celery. And they are such a wonderful object to have on the table because we don't use celery dishes today, but it's such an interesting way to start talking about Victorian dining or talking about food habits or food ways. It's just such a nice way to not really play a guessing game, but to get people energized and engaged with what's on display in the historic site. So I want to kind of run through some object inquiries with all of you, starting with this object. What is something that you notice about this object? What's that? It squeezes together. Yes, yeah, what about it do you notice that might show you that it squeezes together? Two handles, a hinge. Absolutely. What's something else that you notice?
It might be over something hot because it's long.
It might be over something hot because it's long. Yes, absolutely. So you might be using those handles to be able to hold it over something hot. Oh, absolutely. We're filming the thing for the future. So there's the long handles that you might be using to hold it over something hot, the hinge to bring it together. One more thing that we notice about it.
It's wavy.
It is wavy on one end. It is. So you can notice on the end where it looks like it might be holding something. And yeah, and I think I did hear somebody say toast. It is a toaster. So you would be holding this over the fire or over a stovetop. It's wavy so that you can set it down and the bread won't touch the hot surface. Here's an object from Victoria Mansion, or that we have in Victoria Mansion. What is something that you notice about this one? It does have wheels, so it's probably movable. Definitely. What's something else? There are little balls inside, yes. There's little wooden balls all throughout this object, so it's rather large, too, to be able to hold all of those other smaller objects. It's on wheels.
Is it a lever? Is it like a catapult?
It does look like a catapult, yeah. So the way that this arm is kind of set along the bar here on the object, it almost does look like a catapult. So it does have that hinge. So it opens and closes, or it moves something. When this object first made an appearance at Victoria Mansion, I associated it with the fact that there was a billiards room in Victoria Mansion. I saw those little wooden balls in there and I thought like, oh, this is probably something for like billiard balls and billiard cues, and you can open it and close it. And I was so off the mark, it's a washing machine.
Oh my God.
So the little balls inside, you would fill this up with water, add some detergent. When you pulled this lever down, it would agitate and the balls would go through the water and beat against the linens that you put into the washing machine. And it is movable on those wheels to be able to move it around the laundry room and save space. So it's just such a fun object to be able to try to make connections. Yes?
What was the object from New Sweden that had the upright and the...
Oh, yes. The object from New Sweden, this is a hand-cranked timber bore.
A what?
A hand-cranked timber bore. So it was used to bore holes for pegs in square-cut timbers to construct houses. So this is a piece, let me grab the image. So right here, you would have the board underneath this, and you would drive this down in there to make sure that every hole that you were drilling was of the same size. Oh, sure. Okay. Well, I don't know what the next one is. All right, another object. These are two sides of the same object. What's something that you notice about this one? It looks like it could be metal. Absolutely. What about it makes you think that it might be metal? The rust. Yeah.
It looks like it's standing. It's like a Christmas tree holder.
It does look like a stand. It does look like a Christmas tree holder. There's like this little hole in the middle here. So, how big is it? Interesting thing, I don't actually know. This is a piece that was sent to me from the Fifth Maine Museum. So this is something that you might see on display over on Peaks Island.
Something might be held in those little things there.
Something might be held in the little rivets in here and the little pieces.
Military uniform accessory?
Military uniform accessory, possibly. So we have the association with the fact that the Fifth Maine Museum was part of the Civil War Regiment.
Is it all punching holes?
Punching holes?
Yeah.
How would it punch holes? Okay. Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, so it does look like it has like a very specific size that could be used as a tool.
Is it part of a chain that's shot from cannons? They actually used to shoot spiked things from cannons, or between cannons. They'd have.
Yeah, I heard somebody say a balk. Oh, fodder, yeah. Yes, so very similar to that. So something that would hold chains on it to be shot out. It does actually have, so there are these rivets around here, as someone noticed, to be able to hold something in. And it was likely, so it is metal and rusted. It would have been underwater, so it would have been exposed to a lot of water corrosion. And it did have something wrapped around it because this was used to tie together nets for catching submarines. So this was sort of a military defense piece. So it's a piece of something that would have made up a larger underwater structure.
A piece of hardware?
Yes. Yeah, a piece of hardware.
So at this point, if you were giving a tour.
Yes.
And you were talking about this, would you mention that at one point they did put a net across? Would you mention that even though, or do you think somebody would?
Yeah, I think that it would definitely depend on your tour. I think that it would be a great way to talk about the changing aspect of Portland Harbor and the different ages that it has seen.
So even though it's not really related to Victoria Mansion, you
Yeah.
could just
Yeah.
walk over there and talk about the Civil War.
If we had this on display at Victoria Mansion, I feel like we would probably be using this in conjunction with a larger exhibit about the Civil War era, because we were completed in 1860. So if we were to do maybe a co-exhibit with the Fifth Maine Museum at some point, this might make a great object to talk about the changes of Portland Harbor, and we could talk about that in relation to, you know, our association with New Orleans and everything. But I think that if this were on display at Fifth Maine Museum, that would give a lot of great jumping off points for them to be able to talk about the different aspects of what the soldiers would have been doing, what civilians would have been exposed to, and the fact that somebody did have to make this. Maybe it was made here at Portland Company, we're not sure. Oh, okay, that's okay. Okay, so the next bit is we're gonna look also at some two-dimensional objects. So you can do the same thing with two-dimensional objects that you can with three-dimensional objects. It's a great way to get people talking about art. So often when visitors come to a museum, they think like, I don't know how to think about art. I don't know how to look at art. But I think that everybody can make associations with art, and that's one of the wonderful things about any two-dimensional image that you have in a collection. And again, facilitating with this yes and. What are you noticing in this work of art, or this photograph, or this headstone? Asking visitors what they notice can lead to new discoveries and give visitors agency in their own experience. So they might notice something in, for example, this work. What are you seeing here? Lots of flags. Yes. Does anybody recognize some of the flags? Yes, they're the signal flags from the Portland Observatory. And this was a system that Lemuel Moody came up with to be able to signal the different types of ships that were coming into the harbor. We can go to the next one. So here's a painting from the Maine Historical Society collections. What's going on here? What do you notice? There is a fire. That is one of the first things that a lot of folks might notice. Absolutely. So there's a fire. What's something else that you notice in this painting? A lot of people. There are so many people gathered around. Are they all looking at the fire? They all seem to kind of be heading in that particular direction. What else do you notice?
Major building on the left and a major building on fire.
Yeah, so major building, a large building on the left, large building on fire.
Which way the wind's blowing?
Which way the wind is blowing? Yes, so it seems to be, the wind seems to be carrying the fire over onto one side of town. Yes?
Are they putting water on the building that's not on fire?
Are they putting water on the building? So yeah, it looks like there are some people who are trying to put water on the building on fire. The white building. Oh, on the white building.
There's like this blue
Oh,
right
okay.
on the front.
Oh.
It looks like it's kind of splashed.
Oh, possibly, yeah. Yeah, so possibly trying to stop another building from burning at the same time because that is where that wind is heading.
It's hard to tell if it's night or that's all smoke.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hard to tell if it's night based on all of the smoke. It could be the middle of the night and all of these people have come out of their houses. It could be the middle of the day and it has just stopped everyone in their tracks. But it's a very chaotic scene and it does seem to be affecting pretty much the whole town. What are the buildings made of? Mostly wood. So that's another piece of the chaos of that fire and trying to, as some folks might be doing in that side of the painting, trying to save another building from catching fire as well. Just going to look at what the description of this is really quickly. This is the burning of the American House, a tavern in Portland. The burning was in 1852. Painter was George Frederick Morse, who painted this when he was 18 years old. All right, the next one. All right, what's happening in this photograph? What do you notice? What's that? They're clearing a track, yeah. So there's someone here on a train track. I did notice someone say there's a train coming. There sure is a train on its way. Why might they be? Yeah, I think I heard someone say it. There's snow. They're clearing the snow off of the tracks.
And it also looks like a 2-foot railroad, not a standard gauge railroad.
Yes, so it's a very narrow gauge railroad track. What else do you notice?
Not in a hurry.
What makes you say they're not in a hurry?
The usual one-man working.
That is, yeah, absolutely. The one man working, a couple of other guys just watching and making sure he's doing a good job. Something we still see today. I actually saw that on my drive in this morning. Somebody was putting a scope down a hole and there were 5 other people saying like, oh, yep, that's a scope going down a hole. Yeah, one more thing that someone might have noticed.
The snow.
The snow, the time of year. Yeah, so it's possible that these folks have been called in specifically because they need this extra work in the winter, trying to manually clear the snow off of the track. You can see that there's a plume of smoke coming up from the train, so that gives you an idea of how the train was running. There are people in the background. Possibly there as spectators, possibly there just to, again, make sure that everything is going well. Absolutely.
It doesn't look like it's particularly cold,
Doesn't,
even though
yeah.
there's snow.
Sure, what makes you say that it doesn't look particularly cold?
It doesn't look like that gentleman who's leaning on his tool there
Mm-hmm.
has a heavy coat or anything on.
Sure.
He doesn't look it.
Yeah, so he does look like he's just wearing a regular shirt and overalls.
Well, there's
Yeah.
no snow on the hill.
What's that?
There's no snow on the hill.
And no snow on the hill over here. Yeah. So it may be that it's starting to warm up a little bit.
Made the assumption that the train was actually moving.
Mhm.
Maybe it's not.
Oh.
that's why they're so
Oh.
say about it. I mean,
Sh-
it could just be fired up and not moving.
Sure, yeah. So it may be that they're just clearing the path for the train to be able to eventually start making its route, and it's not quite moving just yet. Yeah, so there's all kinds of great associations that we can make with just one photograph of men at a train track. This is a piece that was sent in from the Maine Narrow Gauge Railroad. I believe this is the track that was leading from Wiscasset to
Farmington.
Farmington. Thank you. Do we have another one next? Yeah. So what's going on here?
Ringing something? Because there's like a mallet that looks like it probably goes like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So possibly ringing something. There's a mallet that looks like it is wound back to start to strike something. Yeah. What else do you notice in this? I love schematics because there's so many different things that you can pull out of them.
Automated bell striker or something from a lighthouse.
Automated bell striker from the lighthouse? That is exactly what it is. Yes. Yeah, so this is from Spring Point Ledge Light. But I do love that there are just all of these moving parts. And you can already make that association with the fact that it might be something ready to strike a bell from just that mallet and that one piece that looks like it's about to start a motion. Definitely. Yeah. Okay. I will once again ask Victoria Mansion folks to, they can make observations, of course. But this is a piece from Victoria Mansion. What's something that you notice about this? What do you notice about her? It's a woman warrior. Yeah, what about her says warrior? She does. She has a spear, a helmet, a shield. Yeah. What else? She does, yep, she has an armored breastplate. An urn, yep. A little still life next to her, too, with some fruits.
She's not fighting at this time.
She's not fighting at this time. Yeah. She's barefoot. She does seem to be reclining. She's not actively in battle, but she does appear to be someone who is ready for battle. She looks like a warrior. Definitely. Yeah. And this is a painting that's above the front. When you first walk in the front door in Victoria Mansion, she's on the ceiling over the front door. So she's kind of like protecting that front door. She's the allegory of fortitude, one of the cardinal virtues. And I just think it's really interesting that she does borrow a lot of classical mythological symbols there with the spear and the helmet. So something that kind of shows what it is that she is representing to the visitors. Next one. So we're into the cemeteries. What do you notice about the art on the headstone?
They're holding hands.
They're holding hands.
Yeah.
Yep. So this is a couple, a husband and wife. What else do you notice?
They were born the same year.
What's that? Born the same year? 1814. Yep. Did they die the same year?
No.
No.
She died.
Yeah, they're wrapped in wreaths. And wreaths are something that we can associate with like that laurel wreath, something of a triumph, something to be celebrated. Can you see from the dates who passed away first?
The wife.
The wife.
Yes.
Do you notice anything with the hands that they're holding?
They have different sleeves.
They have different sleeves. So the woman has a slightly longer sleeve, the man has a more tailored sleeve.
Her maiden name is Pratt. Was that usual? Did they put women's maiden names? Or did they just,
I believe it depended on the person. I would defer to folks from one of the cemeteries for that, but I think that it did depend on the person or the wealth of the person and what they were able to add to the headstone. But yeah, so what I have gleaned from this is here at Evergreen Cemetery, and it does appear the wife who passed away first seems to be greeting her husband since he passed away after her.
Like more of like a robe.
She has more of a robe, yeah.
Her hand is facing outward, like she's the one stretching it out and he's taking it.
Yes, yeah. So it's a nice way to depict this dual headstone. Yeah, and the next one?
Created after the husband died as one piece, or was it partially carved
That's a really great question. Is Marianne here? Marianne is not here. I will get back to you with an answer about that because I would really like to know that as well. All right, the next one I think is the last one. Still some headstones. There's a common symbol in all three of these stones.
Anchor.
An anchor. What is the difference between the different anchors?
How it's facing.
Yeah. So we have a downward facing anchor, a sort of tilted upward facing.
Kind of angled and being leaned on.
Yeah, and this one is coupled with a robed female figure. So I heard someone say something nautical. You would think that, yeah, an anchor would probably symbolize something to do with someone in the maritime trade, something that happened at sea. So the three of these, even though they're all using an anchor, they're kind of depicting something different. So the anchor facing downward would be someone who maybe was a ship's captain, worked in the maritime trades. The upward facing anchor would have been someone lost at sea. And then the anchor with the woman, it's more of a sort of symbol of hope. Is there a description on there that I added? Nope, that's okay. But more of this just an anchored soul sort of idea. Yeah. Do I have one more, or is this the last one? All right. So now we get to work with some physical objects. Did you have a question?
A suggestion that might not come up, I probably won't be here for the Victoria Mansion.
Sure.
But there's a garden diagonally across the street from the Victoria Mansion.
Yes.
Long and narrow.
Yep.
And I designed it. And I built it.
Oh, wonderful.
And it is a pattern that is found within the decorations inside the Victoria Mansion.
Really?
Yeah, partially because
Oh, my
the
goodness.
families that lived there were associated with the mansion.
Oh.
And so in any case, you could actually start a tour outside and show them the hedge pattern and say, can you find this pattern inside the Victoria Mansion? I just thought you
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's awesome. I've been at the mansion for so long, and I'm still learning things about it, which is one of my favorite things about any of the historic sites here in Portland. So I'm going to distribute some of these objects that I have here onto the different tables. And basically, it would be great if folks could just take some time with the object. Any of these can be handled, just be careful. See what you notice about them. How heavy or light is it? Can you make any associations with it? What do you notice about it? Any observations that you can have. So I'm going to distribute some of these, and we'll circle around and